Hi, everyone. Welcome to tonight's live chat. It's good to see you in the chat. Hope you're doing okay today. How are you guys doing with the quote unquote holiday traffic? I just got back home. I ran out to get a few things, for mom, get a few things for me, my siblings, and I went out there and I wanted to turn back around, guys. Like, it is a lot of traffic out there. So hopefully you guys are having a good weekend, safe weekend so far. Let's jump into this topic, okay, guys? If there's anything wrong, let me know, like you always do, and we will fix it. But so far, it looks like we're okay. Let's jump into this topic, okay, guys? This topic is extraordinarily difficult. Do you see that? My power better not go out. This is a very difficult topic because there's the idea of illusion, delusion, hallucination, and being able to reality test. And it's hard to talk to someone who has and I'm going to bring down some new words. I want to mention some new words to you, but it's hard to break down the misalignment that a person can experience with reality. Because there are a variety of reasons why maybe they can't accept reality. You know, maybe they were disappointed as a child, an adolescent, a young adult, and now they just kind of live in a fantasy. Or maybe they've been traumatized and the only security and safety they have is to believe life is happening in one way and not another way. You know, maybe somewhere along the way, life was just too painful and all they know to do is stay in a fantasy or a stuck place in their mind. There could be a variety of reasons why there is a misalignment with reality. But when it comes to relationships and deception, guys, psychology doesn't have a lot of information on it. I was looking at research a couple weeks ago on pathological lying. We still don't have any clear research or understanding of why a person just takes a situation and skews the perception of it. You know, even when they're caught in a lie, they can't back themselves out of that lie and say, you know what, that's not all true. Here's really what the truth is. They continue with that lie, and sometimes they will fight tooth and nail to get you to understand and believe that what they are talking about or telling you is true. So we're very behind in understanding pathological lying. We also can't diagnose relationship deception. We can't diagnose relationship lies. We also can't diagnose what we call a high lie susceptibility, meaning there's a person in your world that has a high level of susceptibility of believing a lie, of being manipulated by a lie, and being the person who's going to tell the lie. These individuals have a high lie susceptibility. So we're behind on understanding them. We're also behind on understanding what illusions do to us. And a lot of times we go throughout life with this illusion of reality because it's safe, because it's less complex, because it feels good in the moment. And that is also not well understood by psychologists, by therapists. We're still trying to research this inquiry that we often have into our perceptual system. There's also a neurological piece to this, guys, that you can step into a relationship, or you can have a family member, you can have a coworker, a boss, a friend, even a neighbor who seems to live in a what's the word I'm looking for? An alternate reality. That's what I'm looking for. They seem to live in a world that doesn't connect to you. They seem to live in a world that doesn't connect with reality. It is not grounded in reality. It's somewhere over there, right? And those kind of individuals, we have a lot of problem not only doing therapy with, but also understanding the mechanisms of how they think, how they approach life, why they approach life the way that they do. We are behind. And looking at the research and trying to understand our cognitive processing when it comes to lies, deception, illusions, hallucinations. We might as well add those in there. There's a lot of conversation around it, but we don't have enough research. So in the world of psychology, guys, and I may have said this yesterday in our live chat yesterday, in the world of psychology, that is quantitative versus qualitative. We have a lot of qualitative information on the impact of illusions in relationships, but we don't have quantitative data. Quantitative data is statistics and research and numbers and percentages and lab studies and patterns of behavior that is observable and objective. And we can pull from that and say, you know what, 50% of people do this, or research suggests, you guys hear me say that all the time, research suggests A, B, and C. That is quantitative, but qualitative tends to be more of a spiritual nature, tends to be more of an existential and philosophy nature, tends to be more of a conversational and an experimental nature. A therapist who is doing qualitative research would go and talk to the lady down the street who can help the therapist understand how they got kind of reeled in to this lie of a relationship. So that is qualitative. We have a lot of that. We don't have enough quantitative data. So we're often in this mentality that, if I see something a particular way, it must be true. My eyes or my experience is the only concrete truth and proof that I have that something is happening. And while that makes sense, you may find yourself in the middle of a relationship that really wasn't of truth. And you guys give me some examples of how this has impacted you. But I have a lot of clients and I know a lot of people who feel that they've been in a relationship or, their family dynamic is not reality. There's something wrong with it. Somebody's not seeing something right. Somebody's not being honest about something. There's intergenerational lies. There's a perpetuation of fantasy, or there's a perpetuation of incorrect perceptions of reality. There may also be an incorrect perception of you, right? Let's say, for example, your father is really cold. I have a client like this. Her dad is just ice cold. There is nothing that he says or does that makes her feel understood. Why? Because he perceives her in a different light than what she really is. She needs dad's love and affection, compassion, support, knowledge. Dad won't give it to her. Why? Because his incorrect perception of her is that she is, and he has said this to me once in the past, she is an attention seeker. She is looking for sympathy. She is really desiring a support system that she'll never have. She is manipulative and puts people in triangles. I'll put it that way. His perception of her is all negative and self-centered and egotistical. The reality is that he's the problem, not his daughter. So he may perceive her a certain way, but that doesn't have to be the truth. He kind of lives in a fantasy world that he has built and put together himself. And it's a world where he is comfortable. It's a world where he is safe. It's a world that protects his inner ego, his inner vulnerabilities from the outside world. I know you guys know people like this. And if you don't know outsiders like this, you probably have family members like this. These individuals are very, very far removed from reality. Now, let me jump into some terminology because I know you guys love the terminology. Research does suggest that there is often a misalignment with reality with these individuals. There's a certain way that their brain processes information. There's a cognitive processing which reveals over time how their brain organizes reality. Let me go back over that because that can be a lot. So there's cognitive processing that happens. And the cognitive processing of these individuals who live in a fantasy world, or they have an incorrect perception of reality or of you, there's a cognitive processing within them that reveals how the brain organizes reality within them. So it's kind of like, you know, they have this skewed way that they view other people, they view their family, they view themselves, and it creates this reality that's fake all around you. And that person just sees you in that light, whether or not you are displaying behaviors, attitudes, or mentalities that aligns with the perception of you. Does that make sense, guys? So research in psychology calls this cognitive illusion or cognitive illusions. And really what it does is it interferes with one's ability to see you correctly. It can also interfere with your ability to make healthy decisions and to have clear thinking about the kind of relationship that you are in, about the kind of family dynamic that you are in. Cognitive illusions, it can hold you back, right? So let's say, for example, I'll give you an example of this. Let's say, for example, your mom is very self-centered, very egotistical. She's really at the core of who she is as a person. You can align her with a grandiose narcissist. That's how psychologically, what's the word I want to use here, guys? She's so psychologically battering. She batters people with how she talks to them and engages them. Her verbal behavior, or maybe you can't use those two. I'm struggling here for the right word to give you guys. I'll put it this way: her attitude and her verbosity. So how she talks to you is really abusive and controlling and hurtful. And it doesn't make communication with her easy. It makes it very difficult. And you just don't like talking to her. So that is mom, right? She's a grandiose narcissist. She doesn't seem to care about you. She doesn't understand who you really are at the core of who you are, right? And every conversation with her just feels shallow and unemotional and far removed from reality. She might even have some toxic positivity going on. So any and everything you bring to her, she may kind of put a positive spin on it, and it may make you feel like you're not being heard at all, right? That's mom. Now, dad may be a little bit different, but he still has behaviors that are not healthy for you, right? And the way that he sees you is the way that his wife sees you, because they are a unit, they're married, and they talk about you. And mom is so overwhelmingly controlling that all dad can do is go along with her to have some peace of mind for himself, right? So that is the dynamic of that relationship. How they see you is based on mom's misalignment with reality. It's based on her misalignment with reality. And she kind of encourages your dad in a variety of ways to see you in a way that you are not. And that doesn't work to your benefit. It makes the communication between you and your parents very difficult. I hope that's making better sense now. It's been a long day, guys. So forgive me if the words are not coming out correctly to explain this. But this is really difficult, right? So, and I'm going to give you later what happens to you in this process. But what tends to happen is you kind of get lost, you kind of get lost in the relationship and in your own perception of the relationship. And that can be a really painful thing. Your perception of your relationship with your parents, or your illusory perception of your parents, can really be negative, and it can become very painful and hurtful over time. Let me also break down, maybe I should break this down as well, the difference between, because I know some of you are probably thinking, what's the difference between a hallucination, an illusion, and a delusion? So let me break that down. If you have a misalignment with reality, and there is this misinterpretation of real things that are happening, There is a misinterpretation of a relationship. There's a misinterpretation of stimuli, what you're hearing, what you're seeing, what you're feeling, right? That is considered an illusion because it's a misinterpretation of reality. A hallucination is a false perception of reality. Does that make sense, guys? Illusions are a misinterpretation of reality. And you can definitely have an illusion of a relationship, right? My illusion of her over there, this could be a man, right? That my illusion of that woman over there is that she is smart, she's peaceful, she's loving, she's kind, she's got it all together. I think I'm going to go over there and talk to her and see if there's something that I can make out of this so that I can ask her out on a date, so that I can have her phone number and call her and talk to her at certain points in time. His illusion is a misinterpretation. If he sees her that way and he walks up to her and she's rude and she's arrogant and she's loud and she's flamboyant and she's accusatory and paranoid, right? His illusion of her from a distance is a misinterpretation. It's a misinterpretation of a real situation, right? And that can happen to you in a relationship. It can happen to you with your family, or it can happen to your family members with you, right? That there are true things that they're seeing, but it's a misinterpretation of reality. An illusion can be a skewed way that we view relationships, a skewed way that we review or view reality. And it can be perpetuated, encouraged, and perpetuated by fear, trauma, heartache and pain in the past that has turned us around and changed us, deception, pathological lying. We're going to go through all the different ways that an illusion can kind of thwart your walk ahead, and also thwart the healthy development of a relationship that you're in, of your family relationship that you're in. The dynamics of a relationship can be thwarted by an illusion, which is a misinterpretation of reality. A hallucination can be auditory, tactile, meaning, what you're feeling, what you're touching. It could be olfactory, meaning what you're smelling. It could be, what's the other one? It could be gustatory, meaning that it's something that you're tasting that's not there. Hallucinations are more of a psychotic nature, where reality is skewed and it's really shifted and changed in a way that is really unnatural. It's something that isn't actually happening, which makes it very different from an illusion. Again, an illusion is a misinterpretation of reality. A hallucination is a misinterpretation of stimuli or false stimuli or things that are really not happening, right? Hearing your name in the distance called multiple times while you're trying to sleep is a hallucination, right? Eating spaghetti and believing that you were eating food that was taken from a garbage can, I had a client like that once, is a hallucination. A delusion can also be a part of this, and it can be a false belief that's held to be true. There's 100% visual, objective, data-based information that contradicts your belief, and you still believe it, right? So that's a delusion. A lot of people get those three things confused because it's easy to. An illusion, a hallucination, and a delusion. What we're talking about is an illusion. And an illusion can really thwart the healthy development of your relationship. And it can cause other people in your world to see you in ways that you are not. And once they begin to see you in a way that you are not, how do you think that relationship is going to develop over time? Or how do you think that relationship is going to continue over time? It's not going to be positive. There's going to be absolutely no room to change, to shift, to grow, because that person in your life has a very fixed view of you, and that view isn't shaking, and these kind of individuals make it really hard for you to change, to grow, to expand, to improve. They just see you as the same individual that they've always seen you as. And that misinterpretation of reality can stay with you for the rest of your life. There's something we also call a self-fulfilling prophecy. A self-fulfilling prophecy, you guys know what this is, right? A self-fulfilling prophecy is basically this idea that if you believe that I am going to do A, B, and C, or that I frequently do A, B, and C, and you sense that I have very little hope in you, I have very little, what's the word? I have little, I'll put it this way, I have put little energy into you as a person, into helping you grow, into helping you shift and change, because I don't believe that you're worth that. What do you think is going to happen to you? A self-fulfilling prophecy says you're going to pick that up from them. You're going to intuitively take in that information, and you're going to kind of cement that information within you, and you're going to believe that it's true. So what do you think you're going to be at that point? Well, you think that I am one way. You treat me as if I'm one way. You know, some people are even evil enough to kind of maneuver other things around you to make you appear a certain way, right? I'm going to move that person's mind against you. I'm going to influence how that person sees you. I'm going to go on your job and embarrass you because I want people to know that you are this particular person. I'm going to lie on you or lie about you to cause other people to see you differently. What happens? You kind of digest that sometimes, and you begin to display those very things, that they've always believed were a part of you. So the self-fulfilling prophecy comes up when you are a part of that illusory dynamic. They have this misinterpretation of who you are, and then you develop that self-fulfilling prophecy. And sometimes along the road, you may find that changing that person's mind on you is really difficult. It's a dynamic in and of itself. It happens in classrooms all the time. A child who is of ethnic origin, a Native American child, an African American child, a Black child, a biracial child, they may be in school trying to learn with all the other kids, right? But if that teacher holds a perception of them that is misinterpreted or misaligned with reality, and that child begins to digest that information, it's going to be easy for that teacher to see the child as the constant problem of the room, the instigator of all the problems, the attitudinal one that doesn't have energy to learn, the unmotivated one, right? All those labels and tags get placed upon you because of that self-fulfilling prophecy. And that starts to cause that, I'll put it this way, that causes you over time to sometimes display those very traits that they think is a part of you, right? And it's not only them who can struggle with this, right? It's also you. If you have these internal thoughts and feelings about yourself, you're likely to display those same behaviors that align with how you see yourself, right? If you say to yourself in a cognitive distortion, I am not smart. Remember, a cognitive distortion from yesterday was this skewed perception of reality. And it hits you when you're depressed. It hits you when you're disappointed. It hits you when you're negative. So let's say you start saying about yourself, how can I not see that person over there is a complete jerk? He's foolish, he's rude, he's disrespectful, he's arrogant. You mean to tell me that I found him attractive? What was I thinking? What was going through my mind, right? And so saying that to yourself can cause you to go within and start blaming and labeling yourself. And then you become that over time. You become the thing that your thinking and your labeling makes you, right? So the illusion of relationships is pretty interesting. There's a reason why psychology has a small piece of the field that's known as the psychology of illusions, because the field wants to understand how can a misinterpretation with reality, how can a misalignment with reality cause you so much pain and turmoil in relationships? How is that possible? And so the field of psychology focuses on the psychology of illusions to try to understand this, It's pretty interesting. Let me also say before I go to the chat box that there are cultural variations. There are cultural variations in the interpretation of reality. What? Some people are probably like, what did you just say? Okay, so let me repeat that. There are cultural variations in the perception or interpretation of reality. A mixed family may have a different perception of reality or an interpretation of reality than maybe another race or culture within the family. You may also see that in different educational levels in the family as well, or in the relationship. We all have different levels of exposure. And, maybe my exposure wasn't the exposure of my cousins. Maybe my, great aunt's exposure to life was very different from my exposure to life. I tend to be very different than my extended family. Why? Because my exposure and cultural variation and experience makes me different than those in my family. So my interpretation of things is a little bit different. I'm going to tell you something my cousin asked me on my graduation day over 20 years ago, okay? And I always held that in the centerpiece of my heart, and I haven't really I'm not sure I have forgiven her. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not sure that I have forgiven her for a racial statement that she made. So I was raised, I'm just going to share this. This might be a good example of a cultural variation that can happen within your family or even in your relationship, and it can skew things a little bit. I was raised, my brothers and I were raised quite differently. My older sibling, who's 12 years older than me, he was raised in a predominantly African American or Black environment. And it was because my mom was young. She was 18 when she had my older brother. She was not ready for life. And my grandmother was very, very, can I say culturized? I think I made up another word, guys. She was very ingrained in her culture as being part African. Okay. My mom kind of took on that kind of mindset in her younger years. So my brother, brother who's 12 years older than me, was raised just a little bit differently. I, on the other hand, was raised quite differently, and so is my younger sibling. And I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood. And I went to a predominantly white school, once a public, then a Christian school, and then my mom shifted me to homeschooling. My mom then started integrating my siblings and I because she felt like maybe I need to give Tamara and Ryan a little bit of a different edge. That was me and my younger sibling and my older sibling as well. And so she moved us into a multicultural environment. And I was homeschooled. My brother was homeschooled. My older brother was out of school. So my mom didn't have a problem finding a multi-ethnic community to move us into. And so that's where I found Chinese friends. That's where I found, friends that came from Africa. I had friends from Bogota, Colombia. I had friends who were Caucasian or white and had Italian roots and Irish roots. And so my upbringing was very different and multicultural and multi-ethnic. I went to a predominantly white, rich college, and I went between two predominantly white, rich colleges in my area. And I graduated with, me being probably the only multi-ethnic female in a male-dominated career called psychology and law. And my cousin came to my graduation, which was her last time at my graduation, believe me, because when my graduate school graduation came, it was literally, for those of you who have been with me on this channel for a while, you already know this. My graduation ceremony for my graduate education was me, my grandmother, my brothers, and I. Okay, I totally cut everybody from my graduation ceremony. But my cousin said to me, she looks at me, and I'm walking down the campus with this graduation gown on, my hat on my head, and I'm talking to the president of the university, and she's saying how proud of me she is, and the list goes on. she goes off and says, I'll see you on stage in a couple minutes. And I said, thank you, Dr. Barzoni. I appreciate all the help you've given me over the years. And we're just talking. I go some feet down the rest of my campus, and I'm getting ready to go behind this curtain so that I can step on stage and achieve the degree that I worked so hard to get. And my cousin looks at me and she says, why did you choose a predominantly white college to go to, and one that is rich at that? And my jaw hit the ground. I couldn't believe that she would make that a trivial matter at the time of my ceremony and graduating and making an imprint in a school that didn't have a lot of people of a multi-ethnic origin. And I don't think that I've forgiven her for that, because there is, and there always has been, a misinterpretation of reality when it came to her view of different cultures, her view of my upbringing and my exposure to different things in the world, to different cultures in the world. And that made a huge imprint on our relationship. And I don't think we're as close. This is a self-disclosure in hopes that it'll help you see some things in your own world, but we're not as close as I would like us to be, because I realized that she trivialized race and ethnicity in a way that was just unattractive to me, you know? And it was very impersonal as well. You know, it's like, those people over there, why would you want to be here with them? And that was a huge turnoff. So there was a deep-seated misalignment with reality from her. And why did that happen? Well, you know, there's a couple of things I could point at, and I'm sure you guys can point at that. We're going to talk about them in just a minute here, because I'm going to highlight some of the common issues you are likely to experience within your relationships, within your family, when there's a misalignment in the other person of reality. There's a misinterpretation of reality. There's an illusion, and maybe even a delusion, you know, and, you know, that really makes life difficult. So, you know, that experience for me hopefully can highlight some things in your own world. I'm going to go to the chat box in just a little bit, but, you know, I will say it's been, you know, ever since that day, it's been really difficult for me to see that statement and that question in any different way, you know? And for me, it was her upbringing, her lack of exposure, her level of ignorance, her lack of confidence, lack of footing in the world, lack of identity, that really caused that to be a problem to her, you know? And that was a sad and scary thing that happened there. But this is what can happen in your relationships. There could be a deep-seated misalignment with reality, a cognitive illusion. A cognitive illusion, before I go to the chat box, a cognitive illusion is, in a nutshell, it's an interference with decision-making and thinking. For her, it was an interference with thinking. There wasn't an ability to cognitively process that this is part of the situation. This is a part of the reason why everybody in this family isn't just of one particular race, that there are other cultures in the family. There's other exposures to culture in the family. There's other education, right? So, I mean, you could just do that for days. You know, there's different variations in all of us of experience, culture, the list goes on. But when there's a cognitive illusion, a misinterpretation with reality, it can skew your thinking, and it can change how you see the person in the relationship. It can change how you see life and relationships in general. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight, guys. I'm going to give you some common issues. I'm sure you have people like this in your life. I see you chatting it up for real. I mean, you guys have a lot of good things to say, so I'm going to get into that. So in addition to common challenges, I want to give you what is their problem, right? What is the problem of the person in your life who has a skewed perception of who you are, who has a skewed perception of your value, your worth, right? So we're going to talk about that. All right, guys, let's get to the chat box. I see you, Q Quit Award. Okay, Wait, let me change my camera. I feel blurry here. Okay, that's a little better. Q Code Award, I'm gonna go to you first. Okay. You just made this comment, but I'm gonna go to this comment first. Q Code Award 1. Welcome to tonight's live chat. Glad to have you back tonight. You said, and a cousin is in a sheeple, a follower. Every time you think about your graduation, you will remember her, most likely, all the time. All the time. My mom has a picture up on her bedroom wall where I'm on stage, I'm shaking the president's hand, and I'm getting my degree out of this hand. And there's this photo that shows my mom is just elated because my mom walked with me for almost 10 years of higher education. So she was so proud, tear going down my mom's eye and so forth. And everybody was happy. And, my cousin just throws that in the middle of it. And it's like, why? And why would you even bring up race at this time? That has nothing to do with anything right now. So you're right. You're right. Q Code Award. That's a rough one. I'm going to go to you, Orlando. Thank you for saying that, Q Code Award 1. Orlando, you are right. And I very much agree. You're saying, Tamara, forgiveness is a decision, not a feeling. We have to forgive people to be forgiven by God. Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right, Orlando. You want to take my seat? Because in this particular situation, I'm having a hard time with her. I really am. I think, that was like over 15 years ago. I think at this point, forgiveness is just kind of automatically there because I've kind of pushed it in the back. But I know you guys can relate to this mentality and this feeling of just feeling stung. And that's not a feeling that goes away. I can kind of say, you know what, you're kind of ignorant. You lack wisdom and knowledge and exposure. So I'm going to forgive you for that. Orlando, I can say that I can forgive you for that. But am I going to forgive what you said? Probably not. And maybe for a while, tell me if you guys have trouble with that. I have trouble with that sometimes. I really do. But Orlando, you are absolutely right. I don't disagree. I don't disagree. Okay. Let's jump into this topic, guys, because I know we can all probably relate in tonight's live chat. A seat at the King's table with Tanisha. Hello and welcome. Good to see you tonight. Yeah, I'm glad. You probably can relate the more that I talk about this. You're going to relate some more in just a minute. A and B, hello, welcome. Good to see you. Orlando, always good to see you. Laura Fett, good to see you as well. Welcome back tonight. Martin Hodgson, hello and welcome. Good to see you. And thank you so much for being a member of the channel. Welcome. Perks are coming this summer, so stay tuned. For those of you who are interested in having a consultation with me, please let me know. So you can find my email address in the description box. If you would like a consultation, I'm happy to schedule you. I am completely booked up though until July, but consultations are always 30 minutes. So I can see you 30 minutes and I can fit you into my schedule. But here's why I'm mentioning that. There's a top tier benefit of being a member to the channel. And if you click on join, you will see that there's a top tier membership. You get up to 3 consultations with me a year. Okay, so that's one perk that YouTube has allowed me to roll out. I was so happy to see that. And there will be more perks coming for those of you who are interested. Nancy R, hello and welcome. Good to see you on this Saturday. Hope you are doing well. Anxiety Sauce, hello, my girl. Welcome. Good to see you. You look like one of my previous clients. I know you're not, but you look like her. She was the sweetest kid ever. And I'm like, my brain is going, wait a minute, do I know you? Live Life, hello, welcome. Thank you so much for that. I hope it will be a good conversation tonight. It has a little bit of a spiritual edge because we're talking about illusions. It's a little spiritual as well. It kind of goes neck and neck with yesterday's conversation. Nicole B, hello and welcome back. Good to see you in tonight's live chat. Serafina, hello and welcome. Good to see you. All right, looking for comments. Rochella, Lay, I hope I'm saying that correctly. Regina Myers, Bossy Truthy 15, MS, hello. Welcome to all of you. So glad to see you in another live chat. MX, oh my Lord, I need to take a break. MS, I'm sorry about that, says an excellent topic as always. Thank you so much for that. My family and one brother in particular have broken my heart. And if they can't accept reality, there's nothing else to say. Yeah. Sometimes our family members just can't accept reality, right? No, they can't. And even those that we're in relationship with, sometimes, and I've learned this personally and professionally, sometimes if you can't accept the truth of what this is, if you are going to be a problem for truth, right, to do its work or to be what it is, then I have to back up, because I'm not willing to live a lie. I'm not willing to live in deception. I'm not willing to cover up the truth, right? And so sometimes you just have to walk away or put them on the back burner, right? Or somebody told me the other day, put them up on the shelf, That's just reality, right? I don't know, Serafina. Hopefully YouTube is not starting up again. I hope you can see me okay and hear me all right. Geekalicious. You're up there with Starburst. I love it. Hello and welcome to the channel. Good to see you. And welcome to tonight's live chat. Kay Jeanette, hello. Good to see you. Tonight says gaslighting and won't admit they hurt you because they can't identify even their own pain. Sometimes. That's a good point. Sometimes. Oh, yeah. Consider a situation that I had a couple years ago with one of my clients. She came in with her brother. Her brother was in denial of mom's alcoholism and mom's drug abuse and mom's inappropriate sexual behavior. Mom had a different partner every night. She had an alcoholic beverage every night. She also smoked marijuana and was using crack cocaine every other day. And I'm trying to think if it was, I think she was what do you call it? Abusing Percocet, which is a really strong narcotic used for pain, for those of you who are not aware. And she, this lady, okay, had a whole bedroom cabinet, okay, full of Percocet, Tylenol, Advil, ibuprofen, Prevacid. She even had stomach medications. She was literally addicted to these things. Brought her brother in, the sister brought her brother in and tried to ask him to please see reality because their family was sinking. And I remember that session took an hour and 45 minutes because I kept looking at my watch. And I would say, before we end, that's often my nice way of getting you prepared to end. I'll say, before we go, or I'll say, we have 5 minutes left. Let me ask you this, something to kind of prepare them. So I said to the brother, I says, let me ask you this before we get ready to go. Why is this so hard for you? Your sister has brought snapshots, photos of your mother's medicine cabinet, of your mother in a car with another man every other night. Why is this hard for you? And talk about gaslighting, Kay Jeanette. He said, it's not hard for me. She's a liar. And the sister turned and said, you're saying I'm a liar? She was so hurt, And he said, yes, you're a liar. You're a deceiver. You're a manipulator. You want to try to get me to go against mom. The only thing you want is mom's estate when she dies. You want to put her in a rehab and just forget about her and hope she dies there. I don't see anything you're talking about. Mom is really good at what she does. She supports us. And he goes on this whole long tangent of what mom is wonderful for. And it was automatic, Kay Jeanette. It was automatic gaslighting. And why do I, after so many years later, this had to be a case I had maybe 8 years ago. When I look back on that case, he was the master gaslighter because he couldn't face his own pain, right? What son wants to accept that the mother is sleeping around every single day, doing drugs, doing dope, drinking alcohol, the list goes on. So you're right, Kay Jeanette. Sometimes it's because they can't identify their own pain, right? So they minimize the truth of what really is. Ellie Wynn, hello and welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat. Sylvia Love Jones, if I can get you up here, hello and welcome. Good to see you. Jessica J, welcome back. I missed you the last couple of live chats. It's good to see you. Thank you, Nancy R, for confirming there's no buffering. Longevity Rituals, hello and welcome back. Good to see you tonight. Longevity Ritual says, I really wish my stalkers would listen to you. I have been single and friendless due to insane men. Oh, yeah, I get you. Infiltrated my life. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I understand. I think I may have said this yesterday. If it's really a stalking case that's happening, that is terrifying, right? And it can be very draining. It really requires you to think and be on top of things as much as you can. And you may have to see a therapist and work with a therapist and come up with some ways to maneuver this whole situation, you know? I'm sorry if that's really happening. I'm sorry that's happening to you. Kay Jeanette says, we all live in our own reality bubble. Well, maybe. I'm doing that because I'm not sure I agree. Like, I think some of us live in cold reality. That's why we're depressed, right? And I'm saying we to be inclusive. That's why we're depressed. That's why we're suicidal, right? That's why there's anxiety. That's why there's obsessive compulsive tendencies, right? Because sometimes reality can be just that painful. And you can be so raw in terms of viewing reality that it's painful. So I'm not sure we all live in our own reality. But I think at different points in time and in different situations, we can live in our own head, you know? I'll put it that way. Orlando says, another confirmation video. Oh, Orlando, you're just in the place you should be, right? I think every live chat, Orlando says, my life again. It's starting to get hilarious, Orlando. I'm sorry. I feel bad about this because it seems like everything I talk about, you know what I mean? Hopefully you're gaining some healing from this too, you know? Regina Myers, hello and welcome. Glad to see you back tonight. Regina Myers says it's very hurtful to be around fake people, especially when it's our relatives. Absolutely. Who wants to be around that, right? Even strangers, it's hard to be around them when they are immature. It's hard to be around them when they are inauthentic. You know, I think it's a major turnoff. Patrick Black 1, hello and welcome. Good to see you tonight. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I hope they are. I truly hope they are. I really do. Okay. Longevity Rituals, I'm going to put you up here. I love that. That is an awesome coping skill. So I'm going to put up there so people can see it. Okay. Abundant Life, hello and welcome. Good to see you. Welcome back tonight. Bossy Truthy 15 says, yesterday, so-called father tried to get a reaction out from me, but I didn't even respond. Sometimes that is the best way to respond to a person who has an incorrect perception of you. Just don't respond. You stay over there with your incorrect perception of me, right? So I think that's a healthy way to manage that. Jessica J says, what a difference a day makes. Thank you for all your support in this chat. It is appreciated. You're welcome. You're welcome. My mom says that all the time. What a difference a day makes. My great grandmother used to say, no 2 days are alike, you know? Okay. Bear with me as I go through some of this. Okay. Allie the Alchemist, I hope I have that right. Hello and welcome. Good to see you and welcome to the channel. Allie the Alchemist says, this makes so much sense and honestly helps me heal so much. Oh, that's wonderful. So good to hear that. That's really good. Ellie Wen says, cognitive illusions. Yeah, cognitive illusion. So we're talking ILLUSION, cognitive illusion. Yeah. Right? Because I think they mean different things, Elliewen. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I am wrong sometimes. But I think that's different. An illusion is different from an illusion, I think. Correct me, somebody, if I'm wrong. Ronald Zion, hello and welcome. Good to see you back tonight. Actually Jovial, hello and welcome back. Actually, Jovial says, so an illusion of someone based on their external environment or situational factors. It can be. It can be. Absolutely. Or it could be an illusion based on prejudice, discrimination, right? It can be an illusion based on jealousy. It could be an illusion based on anger and hostility. Illusions are very much the end result of some kind of intense emotion. Consider not all illusions, but these illusions that we're talking about tonight typically are. Take my cousin as an example, right? It's an illusion in a sense to have this negative feeling of a particular race and group of people, and to say what she said had a lot of emotion to it and had a lot of psychology to it. The emotion was, I don't like this, I feel a certain way about this. I feel like I should have been here, or I feel like you shouldn't be here. I feel like there was some kind of intense emotion that came behind that. So, yes, actually, Jovial, I think, I honestly think that external and situational factors can be an emotion, anger, hostility, jealousy, envy, that kind of thing, Have you ever had someone close to you, say something like, "Man, you're arrogant," or they'll say something like, "You're not supposed to brag on yourself. You need to stop doing that." Or have you ever had somebody say, "Okay, calm down. It's not that big of a deal. Good for you." People who say those kind of things, they most likely have a misalignment when it comes to their perception of you and reality. And there's a strong emotion behind that. I hope that made sense. Sun and Sunflowers, hello and welcome. Good to see you back tonight. Hope you're doing well. Miss Janine MacArthur, hello and welcome. So glad to have you back tonight. Miss Janine MacArthur says, "Hi, Tamara. I have family members who are honest 1 minute and the next tells lies like there's no tomorrow. I just keep the peace by not arguing back and working on being positive. I love your channel." Thank you so much for that. And sometimes that's the best arsenal weapon, or weapon in your arsenal, right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thanks, Jessica J. Thank you. My mom said that too. And I'm like, I don't know how. This has been a long Saturday. But thank you, Jessica J. I appreciate you. The Good Glow says, "Hello and welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat." The Good Glow says, "My mother and brother create false narratives." Oh, yeah. I was trying to think of that word earlier. I'm glad you brought it up. False narratives about me to others because I chose to distance myself from them. It's easier for them to throw me under the bus instead of being honest with themselves. Yeah, that's so true. It is. When somebody, let me go back to you, the Good Glow. When somebody has a false narrative on you, that's an automatic, they have an illusionary way that they are perceiving reality in you. A false narrative starts somewhere, and it often starts when there's a misalignment with reality, right? So your cousin, your brother, your sister, right, your stepfather, whoever, your mom may have a misinterpretation of who you really are because of something you said, because of something you did, because of people that you have in your life, whatever. She has a misinterpretation of you, right? That misinterpretation is perpetuated by a false narrative. And that misinterpretation often starts that false narrative. That's where the beginning is, And that false narrative continues and continues and continues to have life, right? And wings to fly because they have the emotions and the thoughts that goes along with that false narrative. Does that make sense, guys? It's like a whole makeover of their mind, their heart, and their soul. They shift, they change just based on a false narrative. And it's a very scary thing. DJ, hello and welcome. Glad to see you in tonight's live chat. Oh my goodness. Chat. DJ says, "Gaslighting, narcissistic parents and step parents. They disgust me." Yeah, well, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. If that's the way you feel and if that's who they really are, I don't blame you. I don't. Nopper Eradicator, I hope I said that correctly. Hello and welcome. Good to see you and welcome to the channel. Nopper or Noper Eradicator says they're dangerous. They brainwash others into believing things about you that aren't true. And you can't convince them otherwise. That is absolutely true. Have you ever been in a situation where the person that you are with is talking to you a certain way and treating you a certain way, and you feel that emotion, you feel that label that they have applied to you? So let's say, for example, somebody is talking to you like you're a complete idiot, for lack of a clinical term. And they're not calling you that verbally, but the way they're talking to you, the way their body language is pointing at you, right? Slamming things down, tossing things while they're talking to you, right? Nonverbal communication seems very egotistical. They may not say how they are treating you, right? They may not say the things that shows you that they think you're a complete idiot, but it's the way that they're treating you, right? That kind of happens when they are talking to other people about you. And that's what causes the brainwashing. It's the attitude, it's the firm speech, it's the confidence in their words, it's the disposition, it's the attitude that they have that comes along with their conversation about you to somebody else. And that's typically where the brainwashing begins. I think they are very dangerous because they can go all around you and talk about you and talk about the same situation you experienced, but explain it completely different, as if you two had two different experiences. It's very scary. Just Janet, hello and welcome tonight. Glad to see you back. Okay, let me keep going, guys. Then we're going to get back into the content. Ooh, Christine, welcome to tonight's live chat. Christine says, hopefully you can talk about prevention of elderly abuse and legal ways to protect the elderly from being exploited. Yeah, well, maybe I will put that onto the list. I certainly will. I would definitely put that onto the list. I won't say anything about it tonight because it's going to throw us off course, but I will consider putting that on the list. Orlando says, you're my last one. We're going to go back to the chat, the content. Orlando says, I dealt with delusional people, had me second guessing myself for years, no more. Yeah. You want to know why? You want to know why delusional people make you second guess yourself? Because a delusion, as twisted and unstable and not grounded in reality it is not a mental illness. It can make you feel like something's happening that's not really happening, and you feel you've got all the pieces and puzzles put together correctly. Nobody can tell you that you're wrong. You're not going to even consider an alternative view, right? You're smart, you're healthy, you're cognizant, you're not appearing like you have a mental problem. And so people who have a delusion can be very well put together, and it can make it really difficult for them to be, what's the word I'm looking for? To be seen as somebody that is of a delusion or has a delusion. I'll put it that way. It's really hard to see when a person has a delusion because they can sound very smart. They can be very smart. They can be very stable, right? There are, diagnoses that we can apply here, like brief psychosis or delusional disorder. But delusional disorder for me and most clinicians isn't one of those disorders that you can kind of throw pills at, right? Because it's a skewed perception of the mind, and it's a belief that's held to be true, even in the face of evidence that says this is not true. But for the delusional person, oh, it's true, right? And so because of that, they cause you to second guess yourself, Orlando, because they seem so believable, right? They seem so educated sometimes. They appear so well adjusted. And that's the scary part of a delusion. Sometimes, and I don't treat many of these clients and patients anymore, but sometimes you have a client come in, and this has happened to me in the past, and they'll sit in front of you. They appear healthy. They talk and speak as if they are healthy and confident, and they may share their life with you in a way that says, I'm well put together, right? Usually the further along those sessions go, and this is what has happened to me in the past, you start to see one little inch of a delusion, something that doesn't add up. Then you start to see a little bit more of a delusion that is really showing up to be a problem. But the hardest part of that is trying to see that this is a person who has a problem. It's hard. So Orlando, that is why most people who deal with delusional people second guess themselves, because they come across one way that they're not. Okay, let's jump back in. All right, guys. What are some of the common issues with these people? They see you a way that you're not. There's a misalignment with reality. There's a misinterpretation. What's going on here? Well, psychology and research says, and this is something I've seen as well, they tend to really get stuck in the illusion of transparency. The illusion of transparency. These people, okay, and this is what's interesting. These people, walk around trying to come across as if they're about the truth, right? As if they are well put together, as if they see reality for what it is, as if you should be everything that they are, right? They have a very overly confident, I'll put it that way, overly confident mindset. And that overconfidence, though, makes them a fool in the long run, right? There's an illusion of transparency. What happens here in this concept is the person believes that they are being 100% honest with you about what they're experiencing, about their life, about some of the challenges that they are having, when the reality is they're holding back a lot of information. They're not as transparent as they believe they are, right? And so, oh goodness, give me 1 second, guys. This is my mom. I want to make sure that she's okay. I'm sorry. Guys, my mom was like, can you find your brother? I'm like, Mom, I am on YouTube. You guys should be cracking up at this point. She's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Please tell them all I'm sorry for interrupting the chat. Mom, oh my goodness. Okay. All right, guys, where was I? I was telling you that these kind of individuals, one major issue is they act like they're so transparent about everything, and that is not the case. So we call it an illusion of transparency. They kind of live in a hidden world. You can't really make heads or tails of what's going on with them because they hide things. When their illusion of reality, their misinterpretation of reality, is that they're very transparent, they're very open, they're not judgmental, they're very easygoing, and the reality, no, they're not. Another characteristic in these individuals is, I hate to say it, pathological lying. Pathological liars live in a completely different world than most of us live in. Pathological liars, according to research in psychology around crime, forensics, crime scene investigation, where people have been brought in for questioning or they've been communicated with, and they sit and lie as if they think that they're not going to get caught. According to that area of liveliness, because it's a very popular and highly studied area in the field, pathological lying can happen with these individuals at any time, any moment, any day. And they have this kind of convincibility. I just made up a new word again, I think. They convince you that what they're telling you is truth. They convince you that their reality should be everybody's reality. And it is very hard to get around a pathological liar, because you can go this way and they have another lie for you. You can go that way and that's not the way to go because they've lied and you're going the wrong direction. It is really hard to deal with a pathological liar. I'm not going to go any further in this because I know you guys know gaslighting is another thing that these individuals are tagged as utilizing all the time. There's often, again, a misalignment with reality. There's a misinterpretation of who you are. There may be a misinterpretation of life in general. And so they gaslight you and everybody in life, right? And they kind of create or build this world and this life that doesn't exist, right? Sometimes there's also this elicitation of guilt. Now, that's a real word. Elicitation of guilt. There's a process that happens with these individuals who live in an alternate reality where they kind of elicit guilt from you. They know how to push your buttons and make you feel guilty for things that you should not feel guilty about, right? A toxic narcissistic mother may say, why don't you call me? Why don't you answer the phone? You may say, because mom, we always get into an argument when we talk. Your mom may say, in what world does that happen in? We don't always get in fights. You may say, yes, we do. Remember last month? And she may go against you, right? Then she may say, oh, yeah, I remember that. That's because you always talk smart to me. That's because you don't act this way unless you're around your friends. You've always been this kind of child to me. And she may go on and on and on. She's eliciting guilt, eliciting guilt. You may also notice in these individuals that there is basically trouble with the obvious. There's trouble with the obvious. Here's the truth of reality, and you can't accept it, right? And that's where the misalignment with reality starts. It's I have an inability to accept what is objective. I have an inability, to accept what is reality. So I'm going to skew this, whether I'm aware of the fact that I'm skewing this or not. Right, guys? There's also something I mentioned at the beginning. I think it's called having a high lie susceptibility. A high lie susceptibility is my susceptibility to being influenced is way up here. And so if you lie, I'm going to lie. And if that person over there can lie and get away with it, I'm going to lie too. So that's a high lie susceptibility. And these individuals will engage in that. The individuals who have a misalignment with reality, the individuals who have a misinterpretation of reality, they often have a high lie susceptibility. There's also generational lies within the family and protection of the ego. This can happen as well with these people. How do I protect my ego? Well, I bring things to the forefront that may not be true. That's lying. Or I cover up lies. So there may be generational cover-ups of the truth, right? And you just happen to be a part of that. You're a part of that lie, that cover-up that's been there for multiple generations. They also tend to be sneaky and devious, right? We can tag them sociopaths sometimes. The misalignment with reality isn't just I see reality different than you. It's I am constructing a reality that makes sense to me. You're in my world, right? That's the sociopath way of looking at this. You are a part of my story. This is my reality. You don't have one. Mine is the correct one. And that's that cold, callous, arrogant, egotistical disposition that comes with illusions or a misalignment with reality. And let me also say too, they lack trustworthiness. You really can't trust them. There's rarely, if ever, any honesty, right? And, they may try to say, well, I saw it this way and you saw it that way. And that's why I did it that way because I saw it differently than you. No, you didn't. This is a complete and intentional misinterpretation of reality. This happened to one of my clients about a year ago. Young lady's no longer seeing me for therapy. She went off to college, but this poor sweetie, she was just so battered by her alcoholic father. And, what he did, anytime she would bring him into her therapy sessions, she would say to him, Dad, I need you to stop drinking. I'm going off to college soon. I just want a sober dad. He would take it in during the appointments, but then go home and start drinking a whole box of beer, Or he would stop at wine and spirits or some store that sells alcohol and pick up a whole box of wine. One time my previous client, this young lady, she went on a vacation for 2 weeks with her school and came back, and dad was literally passed out on the floor drunk. There's no trustworthiness. There's no honesty. They are sneaky. They can be devious. And they also have an elusive nature, almost like a snake. They're constantly slithering all around you, and you don't see what's going on. They're all around you slithering and doing all the dirty work, right? And then they take that work that they have done, that dirty work that they have done, and then they skew the perception of it. And there you have this negative interpretation of reality, this misalignment with reality, or this misinterpretation. These people are really challenging, right? Okay. I think I'm going to pause on sharing some of the research here. And I think I might just go into the chat box for a little bit, and then the impact, that these people can have in your world. So we'll go there. I think I'm going to hold off on the research a little bit. I'm going to post the research in a comment after we wrap up, and then I'm going to pin that comment so that you can see some of the research that's being done on the psychology of illusions. Okay. All right. Let me just go through the chat box for a little bit, then we're going to go back. Is it Sylvie? I want to say that's it. Happy Easter to you as well. Hello and welcome. Good to see you back tonight. Good to see you. Mom Tude, hello. Good to see you as well. Cora Sky, hello and welcome back. Good to see you. Jessica J says, I've been no contact for more than 20 years from my brother, and was told that I am dead to him. He was someone I once admired. He became evil overnight. I was shocked. I guess so. Evil, you missed our conversation yesterday on spiritual things, Jessica J. Evil is very present, right? Whether you believe in a religion or not, evil exists. And so, it's possible he could have changed overnight, but it's also possible that he's always been that way. But it may have been your illusion that he was a different person than he really is. That's another way that we could look at this, right, Jessica J? Yeah. You never know. Lorfit says, sounds like my pap siblings and people I tend to attract, just surface-based relationship. Anything real scares them away, avoiding conflicts and never resolving them. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that, Lorfit. Yeah. MS says, Tamara, thank you for always showing up with these thought-provoking topics. It means the world to me. Oh, you're welcome. And thank you for saying that. That's so awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Christine says, please go into each culture. I can. Maybe at some point I can do that in a live chat. We'll see. I might be able to do that in another live chat. Ali, the chemist, says, you are making so much sense to me right now. That's so good to hear. That is so good to hear. Thank you for that. Thank you. Bossy Truth 15 says, no, I don't suffer delusions. I just Googled that. Or hallucinations. I'm sorry, not delusions, hallucinations. I mean, keep in mind that hallucinations have to be repetitive. A lot of people hear their name being called from over there sometimes, right? A lot of people say, did you just say something? Right? And that person may say, no, I didn't say anything. And you may say, oh, I could have sworn you said something, right? That's normal. It's also normal to have hallucinations when you're really stressed too, right? Like you could be going through chronic stress, kind of like what I'm going through right now, in a sense that, it's chronic. For me, it's clients in a practice, interns and supervising them, YouTube, family needs. My mom needs me, right? Caretaking, shopping, making sure everybody's okay, security, writing a book. Like there's a lot going on. And so what does it do? It throws your mind and your body into fight or flight. And you can be in that stage, bossy, truthy 15, ongoing. Nothing ever calms down. Nothing. You have an inability to pump the brakes, right? When it comes to long-term stress or chronic stress. And so that can cause hallucinations. I have a client that goes through that. Anytime he's stressed, he starts hearing and seeing things that's not there. It's just how his body reacts to stress. But then there's also schizophrenia, right? Where it's a psychiatric condition where you're constantly hearing and seeing and tasting and feeling things that's not there. Nothing of the kind is happening, but you truly believe that it is. So, it's good to, I think it's good to do research. You know what I mean? So I'm glad you Googled it, because that gave me the opportunity to clarify that for you and maybe a lot of other people too. Lord Fitz says, thank God for the increased knowledge and awareness. Right? I agree. I no longer tolerate superficial relationships. Knock, knock. No one is home. Yeah, that's a nice way to put that, Lord Fitz. I'm going to star your comment. I agree. Once you hit a certain age too, you kind of feel like, no, thank you. No, thank you. I don't want it. I'm too old for this. I'm too tired for this. I'm too stressed. I don't want you in my world. Goodbye. And I totally get that. Totally get that. Jessica J says, how can we not see through their facade at the very beginning? Well, that's a fantastic question. I think it's a combination of things. Deception, right? Some people are really good at deceiving. Some people are experts at deceiving. And when they deceive, they are on a mission, right? So they do all the things that they know you want them to do, right? So that they can get over on you and manipulate you and have you see things a certain way, So that's one piece of it. The other piece is something we call self-deception. Self-deception. And I think that's really, in a nutshell, lying to ourselves, right? I think a lot of us can perceive reality and truth instantly. Some of us a little later, and we choose to ignore it. Or in some way, we kind of unconsciously push away that internal thing that's telling us there's a problem. Something's wrong here. Something's off here, So that's the other thing. And then the other way that I look at this, Jessica J, is sometimes trauma, mental illness, behavioral problems, medication overuse, substance abuse, alcoholism, right? All of that can make it really difficult to see somebody for who they are because you're under the influence, or you've been so traumatized you can't see it, or you've been so stressed you can't see it, right? So Jessica J, that's a great question. I'm going to star that question as well, that comment. I think it really just depends on the situation. Okay. Martin Hodgson. I hope I said that right. 1 second, guys. I need a sip of water. Excuse me. Martin Hodgson says, this perfectly sums up my relationship with my mother. My mother has always projected onto me who she thinks I am. That's a very good way to put that. Like, she never interacts with me, but interacts with her perception of me. Oh, that's good. I'm going to star that one too. That is good. There are some people, and I'm so sorry that you're dealing with that. There are some people who do that. I'm going to steal your words. They interact with their perception of you. Very, very true. Very, very true. Ali, thank you for saying that. That was so insightful. And I'm sorry you have to go through that. Nobody wants their mother to communicate or relate to them based on perception. No, just please talk to me, right? Yeah. Ali says, hi, Tamara, glad to catch your live. Thank you so much. Glad you can make it, and welcome to the channel. Juan, or is it Juan? I feel like I'm getting that wrong. I'm sorry. Forgive me. Hello and welcome. Good to have you on the channel. I'm going to say Juan until you correct me. Says, my mom is a covert narcissist, and she took away my brother using my mistakes in life, excuse me, because the scapegoat always sees everything and can expose for what she is. Can expose her for what she is? Is that what you mean? Yeah. There is an illusion also. I'm going to kind of go off of your comment. There's an illusion of family roles, right? Sometimes you're just automatically put into roles that you just don't belong in because of the way mom and dad see you, right? So mom and dad may see you as the child, adult child, who was a young child who was lazy, irritable, angry, slothful, if you will. And so now your parents are treating you that way as an adult. Sometimes you get pushed into roles you don't belong in. And your family being under an illusion, having a misinterpretation of who you are in reality, they then start to treat you the way that they see you, right? Remember, I talked about the self-fulfilling prophecy at the very beginning. Yeah. Sasha, good to see you live. Says, thank you for your service. You're welcome. You always say that on my channel, but I'm so elated to see you on the live chat. Welcome. Kev Dower, hello, welcome. Good to see you as well. Good to see you. Shaka Mom, hello and welcome. Reminds me of Shaka Khan. Hello and welcome. Good to see you tonight. Shaka Mom says, good evening, Tamara. Tomorrow is starting to weigh on my mind. Oh, yeah. Being around a big group, especially my family, feels overwhelming, but being alone is hard too. Yeah, I understand. You're kind of in the middle, right? You're straddling the fence. I learned many years ago, it probably happened when I hit 30 a couple of years ago, that holidays bring so much agony. Somewhere you have to get to a place where you say, nothing is going to give me internal agony if I can help it. And that means I am not going to be anxious over running into you tomorrow. As a matter of fact, I may cancel going to the whole thing. If I do go, I may make it very short. I'm going to hug a few senior citizens, get a plate of food, and I'm out, right? There are some people that are like that. Or I'm going to just send you an Easter card. Happy Easter. May God bless you. See you next holiday, Or you may have to go to the family member's house that's the less or the least, I should correctly say, the least problematic, the least chaotic. You know what I mean? Over time, you learn, and you probably understand this as well. I'm just throwing this out here just in case it can help you. But over time, you realize that I am wasting time being anxious over getting together with family, getting together with big groups. I'm going to stop this right now. And that's what happened to me. I either pivoted in some form in my life with my family, or I stopped going to those events because they didn't do anything but keep me trapped inside. You know what I mean? So that may be a little bit of an interesting angle for you to consider, but it is anxiety provoking. My grandmother, my late grandmother, before she passed away, she was a frequent churchgoer, okay? Like the ones that go to church Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. She was one of those, But in addition to that, she was a holiday goer. That's what I called her. And she enjoyed Easter. And let me tell you, she tried dragging me as a little girl. I was maybe 12, to all her Easter parties with all of her chaotic friends. And I said, Gaga, I'm sorry. I love you. I'm not going this Easter. And that became a joke of the family because I had no shame. No shame. I knew what I needed. So maybe that'll give you some insights. I don't know. Hopefully. Dr. Right Life Truth Teller, hello, welcome back. Good to see you in tonight's live chat. We're going to go back to the content here because we're way over. Dr. Right Life Truth Teller says this goes back to Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, belonging as opposed to differentiation. Yes, it does. Most people will choose order in the collectivist community, sameness over personal responsibility. That is so very true. I'm gonna star your comment as well. I should just go down the whole chat and star all of your comments because you guys are saying some really good things. Thank you for bringing that up. I love that. Juan says, thank you so much, Tamara. I've been watching you for years. Thank you. Years. Thank you. You helped me so much through the years. You're welcome. And that's so kind and sweet. I'm glad. And thank you for being a longtime supporter of the channel. So glad this has been helpful to you. Okay. Yeah. Q Coulda Word says cousin was rude. Beyond that, beyond that. Stark Sweetheart, hello and welcome. Glad to see you back tonight. Says good evening to all in Tamara. You are a wealth of knowledge and help so many. Thank you. Thank you so much. She goes on to say, thank you for sharing all your experiences and knowledge. This resonates with so many. Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you so much for that. That's awesome. Okay, one last welcome. I see, and then, no, I'm sorry, one last comment, and we'll go back to the content. Jazz and Laughter, hello and welcome. Good to see you back in tonight's live chat. The Good Glow says, I wish people would stop telling me I have to forgive and move on because you only get one mother. I can't do it because in her mind, forgiving her means that I'm okay with her never-ending abuse. It could be. It could be. Yeah, it very much could be. It could also send the message that you're just going to be a pushover, right? And I understand that desire to keep that boundary. Consider that there may be a time, if you're able to do this, that you can forgive her actions. Doesn't mean I have to hold your hand and sing kumbaya with you, right? I can forgive that this is who you are. This is just how you think and process life. And it's very different from the way that I see it. I would never do A, B, and C. But since you decide to be that kind of a person, or you really are that kind of a person biologically, then you go ahead with that. I'm going to forgive you for that level of ignorance, but doesn't mean I have to be around you. Doesn't mean I have to call you either. You can be separate from somebody and still kind of, forgive them in a sense. So that may be another angle. The other thing, the Good Glow, before we go back to the content here, is it may be a situation where you have to have a conversation with her. I didn't appreciate A, B, and C. If you can, some people you're going to trigger, and that is the wrong thing to do, right? So be very careful. But you could say, let's say you take this step, the Good Glow. You could say something like, I didn't like that, and I'm never going to like it. Please don't do that to me again. I want to love you in your old years. I want to be a part of your life, but not in that way. And if that's going to be the way things are going to be between me and you, I'm out of here. I don't want it to be that way, and so she may come around. I don't know. Be very careful with that. But that's another idea to consider. Last part of this content, right, guys? What is wrong with these people? Why do they impact you so much, right? These people who have a misinterpretation of reality. Well, there's something known as an illusory construction of the world, an illusory construction of the world. They live in an illusion. They have constructed their world in a way that makes sense to them, caters to them, makes them feel good, keeps them safe from the truth, right? It's a constructed world. Think of how we build houses, right? We have to have a firm foundation. We have to have a firm land. Then we start by building the walls, the structure, the beams, right? The ceiling. And then we add on all the other components to the house. Is this going to be a brick house? Right? All of those decisions that we make to actually and literally build a house is what happens in the mind of a person who is under an illusion. It's an illusory construction of the world. There's many layers to the world that they have constructed. It's not just one lie. It's not just one truth. It's a complete illusory construction of the world. That's how they exist. And so you're not going to be separate from that. They're going to design, they have their house built, okay? They're going to design who they want you to be now, And some people actively do that. They live in this illusion and they actively construct a friendship. They actively construct a romance. They actually construct a fantasy. That's just who they are. There's no interest in, with these people, a maintenance of the relationship. There is absolutely no interest in a maintenance of the relationship. Why? Why would I maintain something that I have a skewed perception of? I'm not going to do that. That's too much work. So they don't have any interest in seeing something for what it is, for working on something, for maintaining the truth of something. They're in a whole world, of their own. There's avoidance of turbulence and disagreement with these people. If there's turbulence and disagreement, it's going to disrupt the house that they have built, those walls that they cover themselves with, So they don't like disagreement. Psychology even backs this up. They really don't like avoidance. Avoidance means they can't bend things the way they want it to be bent. And so that's a battle for them. They also get sucked into self-deception. I did a live chat with you guys a couple weeks ago on self-deception. You may want to check that out. Go back to that again. They live in a whole lie of self-deception. That's just who they are. They also actively, how do I want to put this? They have, I'll say it this way. Okay. They have an actively constructed imagination, or even a companion. So you ready for this? We're talking about imaginary friends. What? Did Tamara just say imaginary friends? Yes, I did. Because psychology has highlighted in the realm of understanding illusion or illusions or childhood trauma or attachment theory. The idea is that there are some adults who clearly are lonely, some adults who are clearly far removed from reality. What do? Well, some are collectors of baby dolls and Barbie dolls and teddy bears. That's totally fine. My late grandmother was a collector of teddy bears, and so was I, because I would go to my grandma's house and collect the teddy bears and take them to my house. You know, she almost killed me a few times for that too. I remember one night I was walking out of her house. I said, "Bye, God, love you." I don't know. I had to be about maybe 7 or 8. And she says, "Bye, T, love you." She says, "What do you have in your hand?" I said, "Oh, nothing." And I'm just running to the car with this teddy bear. And she got me the time I came back to her house. She's like, "Where's the teddy bear?" You know, she really triggered my guilt for sure. But my grandmother was a collector of teddy bears. And I think that had something to do with the psychological need to feel comforted. Her mother was mean. Her mother was pretty much a man. Her dad was the mother. And, you know, she had a very off-kiltered kind of parent-child relationship with her mother. And I think teddy bears were a part of her comfort. You know, so some people collect teddy bears. Some people collect Barbies and baby dolls. You know, I had a teacher that would bring, when I was in private school years ago as a child, my teacher would bring in Cabbage Patch dolls. She would. And she would bring a Hispanic one. She would bring an African-American one or Black child. She would bring a white or Caucasian Cabbage Patch kid, you know, to school every other day. So some people, especially those who live in an illusion, they live in an alternate reality. They do have actively constructed companions, imaginary friends. If you guys want me to do a live chat on imaginary friends, trauma, childhood trauma, and where that comes from, let me know in the chat box, because I have a feeling some of you are like, yes, 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 and yes again. Because really what that conversation would be a breakdown of why there's a fantasy, why there's an imagination. And that really, for the most part, stems from trauma and attachment issues. Then these individuals, lastly, in this character, they do struggle with what we call parasocial relationships. Parasocial relationships. Really what that is to these people, to family members who have a misalignment of reality, they have a misinterpretation of who you are. They show all those negative behaviors we just talked about. These kind of individuals, family or not, they go through parasocial relationships. That's really intense, complicated emotions with celebrities in quotation marks, people on social media. Trying to think of other examples of this. The only thing I can think of, stars in the community, right? Basketball stars, football stars, hockey stars, figure skaters, right? Celebrities, people who are on social media. I used to treat a client briefly. This may interest you about this category. I had a client a couple of years ago when I was in a group private practice with somebody else. And this was a little bit before 2018. And I had a client that came in and she would talk about this sister. And she would talk about this sister who sounded like it was a real sister. Okay. she would say things like, my sister is so much like me and I admire her so much and I love her so much. She's just so beautiful and so graceful. And I would sit there and I would just smile with her because it sounded like she really admired her older sister. It sounded like she really admired everything about her. And, this woman was of African descent. She really felt connected to her cultural roots. She was very native, if you will. She was very, what's the word I'm looking for? Indigenous. And she highly respected her roots. And so all I saw at the time, because I wasn't in private practice, so I think I was overworked. I was tired. I was just learning the ropes of certain cases that I hadn't had before. And I didn't see it. It went over my head. It escaped me. This sister that she was talking about, you ready for this? You ready for this, guys? I don't know if you are. The sister that she had talked to me about for 6 whole months was Oprah Winfrey. Oprah. Do you think she was really connected to Oprah Winfrey? Do you think that was really her sister? No. She talked about Oprah Winfrey for 6 months as if she knew her, as if they were raised in the same home, as if she knew her romantic life, right? As if she knew the deep-seated pieces of the puzzle for Oprah Winfrey's upbringing, her childhood, her young adulthood. And the reason for her coming to therapy was, I want to know why my sister's life has negatively impacted my life, why I feel so depressed when I think of her, why I feel so anxious when I can't see her, right? And the way that she was using terminology sound like an actual sister. She would say, I don't get to see her all the time. Of course not. She's Oprah Winfrey, right? She only comes on for an hour at 4:00 every day, right? But she would say things to me like, I don't get to see her all the time. I really wish I can get to know her husband better, but they're constantly traveling. And it sounds like a real thing. So we call this parasocial. How do I want to add this? It's a parasocial relationship. And it's an inappropriate and deep-seated attachment emotionally to somebody from a distance, as if you know them. So this is the psychology of illusion in a nutshell. There's more, and there's much, much more, but we really talked about the illusion of relationships in this area. So I hope it was helpful. Let me know in the chat box. Tell me what you're thinking of that story of my previous client. I remember going home that night, skipping dinner, taking a shower, literally fell asleep in the shower on the shower floor. Okay. I had so much bubbles in there. It was just insane because I was trying to escape for just a minute. My mind had a hard time conceptualizing this thing that I didn't understand. And, I slept for hours the next day. I was like, I'm not coming into work. I'm sorry. I'm not going to do it. I'm sure you can relate. If you had a client coming to you for 6 months and you think you're really helping them break down the walls of their own life, and boom, they're talking about a celebrity that they don't even personally know. Whew, that's hard. Okay. Marie B, hello. Glad to see you back in tonight's live chat. Welcome. Don 1, good to see you. Welcome back. We're going to wrap up here in just a minute because we're way over. Don 1 says, after all the abuse, my mother thought she would be a good foster caregiver. Whenever I scoffed at how the kids were being treated, my mother would give me a cold, dark look. I felt like an enabler. Ooh, yeah. Don 1, that's rough. I'm so sorry. Yeah, we can psychoanalyze that if you want in the next live chat, because it's going to relate to something similar to that. Make sure you come see me next weekend. Mark Lee, hello and welcome. Good to see you. Let me go back to something. Don 1, you are always here, so you'll be able to relate, I think, to the topic that we're going to have next week. Mark Lee, welcome. Good to see you. Mark Lee says the fake relationships was wonderful, except a deep feeling like we hadn't really bonded, like something was missing, a feeling like connection was vacant. Yep, absolutely. Christina LZ, hello and welcome. Good to see you. Welcome. Yeah, I'm so glad when you can be on here with us live. Hope you're having a good evening as well. I think I've read that one already, Orlando. NGO, hello, welcome. If I didn't welcome you, good to see you in tonight's live chat. Cornbread, oh my God. Are you guys making up these names because you know I like them? Now you're up there with Starburst. Yeah, I think you're up there with Starburst. Cornbread, that is so cute, says, welcome to tonight's live chat. Cornbread says, people who interfere with your right to make an informed decision are incredibly dangerous. The subversion of the perceptions you've built over time is an illusion like no other. Yeah. Somebody has a way with words, but I absolutely agree with that. Yep. I can't remember it, but I agree with that. Bryn Parr, hello and welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat. Okay. Clandestine Girl 16X, hello and welcome. Good to see you. I hope you're having a wonderful weekend. Clandestine Girl 16X says, hi, Tamara. I wonder if your cousin was jealous about your accomplishment of graduating. Maybe that's all she felt she had as a way to insult you. That hurts my heart for you. Thank you. And I'm going to star that comment because my grandmother and my mother and my brother, my older brother, said the same thing because I was hurt by that, you know. Yeah, said the same thing. Yeah. And I think too, speaking of a misalignment of reality, I think the misalignment of reality is there was a feeling of, you know, you're here and I'm here and you don't deserve to be here, you know. And for financial reasons, you know, my mom was a single mom. She didn't have the money to send me to a rich university, but as a homeschooled child at the time, I was able to do a lot of things, and I had scholarships and federal aid, and a church paid my way through school, and volunteer work paid my way through school. So I was highly, highly blessed. And so I think you're right in that. I think you're right in that. That's the reason why I said we don't have to necessarily be friends, but I don't hold that against you as much. Notice I said as much. But thank you for that. I like your psychoanalytic view of that because I think it's 100% true. Silent Walk, hello and welcome. Good to see you. Good to have you. And you're welcome. Thank you so much for that. Jazz and Laughter says, that's great. Rochella says, I feel like forgiveness is remembering without anger. I'm going to star that. So you may be wondering what I mean by starring comments. When I star a comment, you may or may not see it, but that means that I'm putting you as the top comment in the chat box. It doesn't mean anybody else's comments are not important. It just means that that is relatable to all of us. So that's why I star them, just so you know what I'm doing there. Live Life said she brought up race because she couldn't come for your earned achievements, evident by your graduation textbook envy. Ooh, that's a good point, Live Life. Thank you for that. I agree. Deep down in my soul, I agree. I don't want to see it that way, but I do agree. T Bunny Shy, did I say hello to you tonight? Hello and welcome. Good to see you in tonight's live chat. Dr. Right Life, I'm going to put you up on the screen just so people can see you and what you're saying. Yeah, I love that. And I did star your comment. I love that. Love that. Thank you for saying that. Marie B says, do you have a link to join? Yes. If you look down by the description box, you will see join somewhere around subscription or subscribe, you know. Also, if you close my channel out and come back into my channel, you'll get a little box on the side that says become a member. So that's there for you guys. If you want to become a member, it is not something you have to do. It's something I'm grateful that you do. So thank you so much for that. You don't have to, though. Deborah Lancaster, hello and welcome back. Good to see you. Deborah Lancaster says, swap the word forgiveness to release. I release you instead of I forgive you. I love your wisdom. Thank you so much, Tamara. Thank you so much. And that was wisdom that I have now caught, and I will apply it to my heart. Thank you for that. I like it. I like that. Stark Sweetheart says, gaslighting equals illusions and confusion for a lifetime. Agree. Love it. Okay, we're going to wrap up here in literally 2 seconds. I just want to scroll Uh-oh. Wait a minute, guys. YouTube is trying it every night before we go off. It seems like empowered woman. Good to see you. Welcome back. Says my sisters live a lie, are delusional, and created a whole fake persona. I can't have a relationship that is delusional. Absolutely. You can't. You can't. Yeah, you can't have a relationship with somebody who doesn't believe reality. Totally agree. Silent Walk says my family, same, wouldn't accept truth. 3 of them formed a coalition on me 5 years ago, and it was over something ridiculous. Yeah, try to connect, but they just won't have it. Yeah, absolutely. If they don't accept you, Silent Walk, and they're not going to embrace what they need to embrace, then goodbye. You know, you can go over there with that, because I'm not going to maintain this live with you, and I'm not going to be seen a way that I'm not, sometimes you do have to take that firm stance, it's rough. Ellie Wen has something great here to say. I'm going to star this one as well. She says, move forward with no resolution from the deceivers. That is forgiveness, moving forward. I very much agree with that. Very much agree with that. Emily Snyder, hello and welcome. Glad to see you and welcome to the channel. Emily Snyder says, can't remember ever a time when the person with the personality disorder ever asked for forgiveness. Usually that's what people say when you complain about the abuser, kind of like get over it. Yeah, sometimes. Yep, I agree. Sun and Sunflowers, I was just looking at you. Oh my God. Okay, there we go. I hit the wrong button. Jesus. Sun and Sunflower says automatic gaslighting with the client. I don't understand it. They can go online because it's easier, I guess. Yeah, that's what it is. It's easier. It's easier. Disgusting, but it's easier. Guys, it's so many of you I want to read, but I can't. Coral Sky says, hi, Dr. Tam. This topic is so important and sad. Thank you for this. You're welcome. It is sad, right? When there's a reason why I throw some humor in there every now and then. There's a reason why I give some self-disclosure, because the reality and the psychology of this is self-disclosure says I am now in a vulnerable position right along with you as you're watching this. I also want you to see that I am very human like you. I also think that self-disclosure can be educational. If I don't share the stories and the backstories and my personal experience, professional experience, the live chats may be pretty bare, right? Because you're not getting the meaty details that I'm not verbalizing just by giving you concepts. So very much the reason why I do this. And also, I do add some humor in there because as you're saying, Coral Sky, this is sad. Right. And sometimes we just need that mental break to find some humor in here, Yeah. It's rough, right? Kev Dower, you're going to be my last one before we wrap up for the weekend. Kev Dower says false narratives are something I've been dealing with for years. Once a false narrative, Kev, is out there, it's going to be hard to reel it in because, it's kind of like a skateboard just rolling down the road on its own. And if you have some evil family members, they're going to jump on that skateboard and take it for a ride. You know what I mean? Guys, you are so wonderful. Thank you so much for your continual support and love and membership. I truly hope this weekend was insightful. The talk on spirituality and the talk tonight, about illusions and illusions within relationships. I hope this was helpful to you guys and illuminated some things to you. I just hope that you have a wonderful Easter tomorrow, that you feel good, you do things that are healthy and can recharge your soul for the week ahead. I love you guys so much. See you next time. Good night.